Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on the MRO track this afternoon, and thank you for not being tempted to sneak back to your rooms for a little snooze after quite a heavy lunch. Today I have with me, my name's James Burwood. I'm from Goldrat UK. Unsurprisingly, we're based in the UK, and we are Realization's implementation partner in the UK. And I have with me today one of my favourite clients, Craig Speed from Railcare, who's going to talk you guys through his experiences of implementing critical chain and Realization's Concerto software, which we're particularly fond of. But before I welcome Craig to the stage, we're going to play a little video for you to give you an idea, a little bit more, of what exactly it is that Railcare actually does. So I don't know if the tech guys there can cue the video, and then Craig will come to the stage after the video.
Railcare has been in existence since mid-1800s. Railcare is involved in the manufacture, repair and overhaul of rail vehicles within the UK. That can be of any type of vehicle. We're not restricted by the work that we can do. We can do interior overhauls where we can change the ambience, the style, the colour schemes within the vehicles. We can do major structural repairs through collision damage, through aluminium welding processes, or we can take component parts such as the wheel sets or traction motors or bogies which the wheel sets are fitted within for the carriage of the vehicles. So we have an extensive range of skills and competencies within the business. One of the major aspects that we needed to look at was the way in which we engage the projects in the early stages, that the right tools and materials wouldn't be in position, and that a great amount of the profitability of a project was lost in the early stages due to this poor early engagement in projects.
Compared to the other plans we've had in the past, we went through a horrendous project plan that was something like 2,500 lines long, micromanaging the detail, and it was never ever up to date or never accurate. The huge difference I found with the critical chain method was that I always knew where I was, always knew it was up to date, it was robust, very, very simple, and it was easy to communicate where we were, which is what everyone was really after. I would actually say if it hadn't been for the critical chain tools, I'd still probably be doing enablement. Not having the clarity to get this stuff going around, I've probably been chasing a lot of the wrong things, believing that they were important, believing that they were the right things to do. For me, it made a huge difference.
Critical chain project management allowed us to identify danger areas, areas where we're likely to slip, and yes, it gave us early warning so we could avoid those problems in some cases. In other cases we were aware of the problem, we couldn't get rid of it completely, but we could take steps to mitigate it, and as a result I think we were benefiting from the use of this system. We've used this tool, we've adapted it to the way we do things, and so far it's worked, and I'm hoping that this is going to continue into the future.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think a good place to start is to talk a little bit about myself. I've got 15 years railway-specific experience working within the industry in the UK. I started life as a technician and worked through project management, operations management, and more recently within the commercial team as a commercial manager. To tell you a little bit about the presentation, we're going to look at the background to Railcare, talk a little bit about enablement and why enablement is so important to us. Also the challenges we faced throughout this implementation, the solution that we come across, our engagement with Goldrat UK, and also how we used the Concerto software and CCPM methodology. Obviously, with any of these situations, we face significant obstacles, and we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as the results that we yielded from our campaign and how we're going to use that to move forward. Okay, so who are Railcare? One thing we've got is significant history. You saw in the video we've been in existence for 172 years now. We started in 1838, and we occupy, at the time, a large facility in a town called Wolverton, about 40 miles north of London. At the time, really, it came to be really because of its location. Wolverton is exactly equidistant between Birmingham and London, and at the time the Birmingham and London Railway decided that this was where they were going to do their heavy overhaul and repair for the vehicles and trains running on that very busy network. At its peak, Wolverton had some 7,000 employees, and they were doing everything from the manufacture of rail vehicles to the support through components and overhaul of train fleets. It's got a unique feature. We actually we have the Royal Train at Wolverton, and we have since Queen Victoria. So ever since then, the monarchy have located their own train that they use from time to time. So we look after that. Today, Railcare really is sized pretty well for the market that we're in now. We've got 350 people, and we cover an area around half the size, 40 acres, which is still a significant site. Around $75 million a year turnover, and we're also formally public sector. Now we're privatised. We were privatised around 96, 97. We've had a few owners. We were originally bought by Babcock Siemens, and we've also been owned by Alstom Transport. And more recently, about 3 years ago, we became Railcare due to a management buyout. So why is enablement important to Railcare? The diagram you can see on the slide pretty well depicts the process that we go through prior to production of any projects within what we take on to the site. So we'll start with a bid and tendering process. Fundamentally, this is where we pitch for the work. We'll go up against our major competitors, and we'll also look at, if we're successful with the project, we'll go through a bid award clarification process where the client will often look at the scope. Within the industry, we have there's three main asset owners. So there's three, and they're actually banks that own all of the UK rolling stock. So fundamentally, we'll be talking to those guys about the scope of work, but also all the train operating companies, and sometimes their interests can be conflicting as to what they want, what they don't want within the project. And upon that, we'll go through what we call the enablement process. So this is where we're looking at engineering, procurement, looking at certainly training. We need to ensure that we've got the right competence to do the work, bill of materials generated, items ordered, long lead time items procured, so that we're actually ready for production. And that's the term that we use for when the units come on site, we carry out the scope of work, they get released back into traffic, back to the customer. Underneath is the sort of some of the specific elements to enablement, and so we'll agree the customer the specification, in some cases design components with our engineering team, and produce the drawings, place the orders on suppliements, all the way through, going through the work instructions to ensure that we've got full kit enablement ready for production. So why was this historically such a challenge for us? And I think this is the reason why we engaged with Goldratt fundamentally, and why we had so many problems. You'll recall that enablement, to some extent, is the meat in that sandwich, the beginning tendering process and the end production start. Well, what would happen is that the early part of the program would often expand, where the scope was agreed, where the customers would be indecisive about what they wanted, and often quite a long clarification process from the tenders that were submitted would often culminate in that front-end element elongating quite a lot. And more often than not, the actual production start wouldn't change. So we weren't able to, those issues weren't able to spread out. The reason that the production start often wouldn't change is fundamentally because the overhauls are often time-based or mileage-based, and the train operating companies would run what we call a safety case, and they have to abide by that to operate the trains on the UK infrastructure. So the start date wouldn't move, and what would happen is the enablement would get squeezed. So we were often put in a very compromised position before production would even start, and this would cause us significant problems. Some of the behaviours that it would drive within the business, certainly panic within the project teams, the engineering teams, the procurement. You know, it's not nice coming to work when you're sometimes looking like you're doomed to fail. You're pedalling very hard and the tyres are flat, and you know, it's not a good place to be. Client communications are often very difficult. We would struggle with trying to articulate the problems that they were often importing onto us, and obviously we had to understand their position. We'd have engineers chasing late parts, not doing engineering, not using our assets, our skills to the best of their abilities. Project managers, well, they often they didn't know where to focus their efforts. Where do you start in a situation like that? You need to be looking at everything. The thought of not starting something is counterintuitive. It all gets brought out, and we often would flood departments and resource. Lack of effective means of dealing with project delays. We wouldn't really have any effective escalation processes. We would rely on individuals to manage that the best they could, and in this situation that's often very inefficient, so that would itself cause big problems. And also we had, you saw mentioned in the video, very complex project plans, Gantt that would be 2,500, nearly 3,000 lines long, that would be procrastinated over and deliberated, and would often be very, very difficult for the project managers to control. And also the problem of many tasks in play at any one time. So we'd see you know, an awful lot of progress on many things, which was a big problem for us. So around 2008, in November 2008, I think it was, we just finished a high-profile project in the industry. A fleet of trains, they're called the 442 trains, run out of Gatwick, south part of London. What was a $22 million contract ran 16 months late, which was fundamentally due to our enablement process and the issues we had within engineering up front. We actually started production because we were forced to, without drawings finished, without the production teams properly informed and ready, which caused a whole retro program of fitment and scope work, which was a major problem for us, and the net effect was a negative gross contribution to the business. We lost money on that, and so that really drove our need to do something different. We knew we couldn't carry on like this. And we'll call that our compelling need to change. That was our crunch point, in effect. Looking forward, our order book was fairly healthy. We had a contract on the horizon to start in early 2010 that was, again, a very high-profile project, probably the most significant overhaul going on within the industry at this point in time. Very aggressive cycle times, again, working with a very established client in the UK. So we knew we needed to do something different, and that's when we engaged with Goldratt UK. And we didn't just look at implementing critical change, certainly not only in enablement. We did a full implementation across the business, looking at operations, certainly drum buffer rope, also procurement teams. We implemented the solutions there as well. And I was fairly fortunate in that I followed an awful lot of that implementation through the business, as I was a project manager initially, moving through to operations, and now I'm working in a commercial role. So I gained a significant insight. So what do we look to change? Well, we looked at simplifying the project plans. We knew that this was an easy target, something we had to improve upon. We now have project plans that are no more than 200 lines long. We through the help of Goldratt and the team there, We've consolidated them considerably, and we're also looking at. We also have focused project launch meetings, talking about the right things, not talking about things that aren't in play and that aren't significant, perhaps early on in the project. And we've also got templated planning processes whereby we will have generic processes that we can pull out. Quite often, the project plans will be works of art that'll be unique pieces of work, and that's inherent in what they're trying to resolve. But to a large extent, we realise that a lot of this is common with how we go about this process anyway. So that saves us time at the front end. We also use planning workshops incorporating entire core project teams. We would, as a lot of businesses, I guess, in these sort of situations, we would often work in silos. So the engineering department would work on their own, the procurement team, and the project managers and everybody else wouldn't talk effectively, often creating friction within the business. And also, we use critical chain plans and buffers. We've seen a lot of examples of that while we've been here, and that will give us the visualisation and drive the process through. Going through execution, we stuck by some fairly rigid disciplines, and we'll go through them, but we certainly looked at having no more than 3 tasks for any task manager in play at any one time. Once a task was started, it must be completed before a new task. Also looked at daily reporting on Concerto, and with all of these, we were realistic. We had a workforce that, had done things the same way for a significant amount of time, and actually, if Concerto was reported every other day, it was still a significant step change to us. And the same applies with the regular task meetings. We're talking about the tasks. The teams were far more engaged and guided, actually, which was fantastic. And also an escalation process. I said about often things weren't escalated effectively to senior management, and we have a protocol whereby we can raise the issues to top management by midday. If they get raised by the end of business, that's good enough for us. We're happy with that. Again, far better than where we were. So through these disciplines, what did we see? How did Railcare feel after engaging and working through these initiatives? Well, project meetings and discussions were far more constructive. We were talking about the right issues, focusing on where we needed to be. We had reduced stress levels. People knew that what we were doing was achievable, and the way we were doing it was far more achievable. And also the friction between the teams was reduced significantly, which was far healthier for all of us. Again, improved communication. As I said about before, the senior management team were far more engaged now. We could see progress on projects, especially if we had many or more than one enablement going on at any one time. We could see through the visual aspects of Concerto how much buffer we were consuming, where we were. And also we united the engineering, procurement and project teams as one, which again was of good benefit to us. Engineering focused on engineering work, well that was novel for them, and they continued to enjoy that. Those guys working on what they should be was fantastic. And also I think, we spoke about some of the projects that were going wrong previously. The client were far more engaged. They could see with us whereabouts we were in a project. And also they could see the impacts of some of their decisions. It's easy to expect the impossible and to just tell us to work a bit harder, but when actually, that scope change, that engineering change will mean that we're late and we can prove why. It engaged them into our thinking, and really we started working as one to deliver the project. It's not only the facility at Railcare that's got a lot of history and is a number of years old. A lot of the workforce, to be fair, are of a considerable age, and we had a long service award ceremony last week, actually, where there were half a dozen employees, and between them there were a little over 250 years service. So implementing these kinds of things can be very difficult, and we needed to ensure that these guys understood the true benefits of what we were doing. And also, since privatisation, we'd seen quite a few change of owners. I said about Siemens and Alstom coming on board. And with all of this came change initiative. We'd seen, well, the workforce certainly had seen Six Sigma and Lean and all the other good things that could change a business for the better. But they hadn't worked. They hadn't been implemented properly, and there was a legacy of past failures to some extent. So we knew we were going to be up against it to convince everybody of the benefits. And really, this is where Goldratt came into play, and we went through the processes of training and education, and at the right levels. It wasn't just top management or senior management. It was also the guys doing the job at the coalface that made a big difference to us. So we had a lot of cultural issues. I think also at the time of implementation, we were enabling other projects. We were facing operational issues. So we were in the heat of battle, and it's very difficult sometimes to come off the gas that little bit to go and learn something new or implement something. So that was very difficult, and in itself it was hard work for us all. We also had a new management structure at the time. We still have a relatively new management structure, who again were finding their feet. They had many issues to address, and that was difficult. And also a lot of legacy thinking and attitudes, which kind of ties in with the culture as well. And I think also significantly, we had fairly poor customer relations. I think we'll admit that due to some of the past projects and the issues we had, it's quite an insular market that we work in, and we knew we were going to have to work hard to convince them that this was going to benefit all. So there were some of the obstacles we were facing. So through going through the process, and this slide is just words, but some of the things we achieved are very powerful. Just to give you a flavour, in 2010, we had 4 significant enablement projects, and they were all completed on time. And they weren't just completed on time, they were all good quality. They were fully kitted, they were ready for production. The engineering drawings were there. The staff had been trained, the tools and the infrastructure investments had been made, and that was something that was just great for us. 100% due date performance once we go into production and the units are cycling through our facility. Certainly since privatisation, we hadn't achieved that. And just to give that context, we've been 100% on our delivery for nearly 9 months. So that's well, in our view, a fantastic achievement. We've also taken significant spend out of the business, about $9 million to date. We've looked at focused purchasing, taking cost out of engineering. We're able to reduce overtime significantly. We're not, due to far better enablement, we're not having to put overtime on because we're waiting for delivery of material or we've got an issue, with engineering. So that's a big benefit. And also we've got a lot less contracted labour. We're a lot more efficient in what we do in our processes and operations. Because of the implementations that we put through production as well, I spoke a little bit about drum buffer rope and some of the other initiatives we had. We can cycle the units through a lot faster. I spoke a little bit about the networker contract. We were contracted on that to deliver the units every 15 days, and that started in February this year. We've been delivering in 10 days. Every unit to date has gone out in 10 days and to the right quality. So that has obvious benefits to all of us. Fundamentally we're maximising cash flow, but also the asset owners can have their units out in traffic more frequently. They're getting a return on their asset, as well as the train operating companies getting more revenue. That train's out in service a lot more, and it's of benefit to the UK public at the end of the day, which is the main point, I think. We've also got far less firefighting. We're not in that mode of constantly running from one issue to the next. You know, we're now far more empowered, I think, and able to work on you know, the issues that we can choose to, rather than where we're distracted. So where are we going? Where's Railcare looking to take all this? We're using what we've learned, and I'm seeing this firsthand with working in a commercial function, selling our capability. We're looking at capitalising on what we're doing now, certainly with our ability to enable on time, and also our throughput ability, our cycle time performance. We're talking about that to our customers. Also looking at the success of the contracts through 29 and 2010, and I think we're now really in a position within the industry where we're selling something that other guys can't stand by at the moment. We've stole a bit of a march on our competitors. Those guys aren't delivering 100% due date at the moment, and they're also suffering the enablement problems that we were 12 months ago. So we're in a fantastic position because of that. Again, setting the standard with throughput cycles, and as I said, maximising that for the customer. We're not shy about talking about Concerto. I write bids and tenders now, and I write the documentation that we put to the clients when we're trying to win work, and we have a whole section depicted to how we manage projects now, how we manage enablement, with an explanation on Concerto and the CCPM side of things, and how that works with Railcare. And that's opening up the door with these customers. They're wanting to talk to us about that, which is fantastic. We're not there yet. We're continually improving. There's still a lot to come. You know, we're realistic about our implementation, and it's been absolutely fantastic for us. But it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been plain sailing, and there's an awful lot that we can still work on. So we're continually working on improving the flow of the enablement process in particular. We've got a vastly improved working environment. You know, this is something I think that's really important. We have people that enjoy coming to work, and it's not easy to put a price on, I don't think. We now got people that know that they're part of a far more successful team, and that's a good thing to be a part of. And I think we're in the strongest position we can be in these economic times. Certainly in the UK, an awful lot of our customers are choosing not to do some of the refurbishments that are an option, and some of the modification work they would like to do are fundamentally getting pushed to the right to a large extent. So we need to make sure we're in the best position we can be to capitalise on the mileage-based overhauls and what we call the coded repairs. The opportunities are getting consolidated, so we need to ensure that we are there winning the work that we need to be. And as I say, through these initiatives, that's where we are today.